All right, thank you for tuning in to another episode of the Amish Rebel podcast. Today we are going to talk about voting. What an exciting time. Not. No, I'm just kidding. We're going to talk about voting and why the Amish don't vote.
Or do.
And why they started to vote. So I hope you stick around for this episode. It should be pretty interesting. I'm here with Lavina again today. So thank you, Lavina, for coming on.
You're welcome.
To have this conversation. It should be good. What an interesting time we live in, though. Man, oh man. Just watching the election, I guess this is like the first election that I've really been involved in deeply, and just following it for the last several years, and then also watching it play out the other night. And
this is the first election that I've seen since I left the Amish, so this was pretty interesting.
Oh, wow.
Yeah.
Okay.
I know. I'm pretty sure it's not always. I don't know. Like hearing my mom and dad and their friends, Amish friends, talked about it when I was growing up. Sometimes talked about how the election went down because we all know Amish are very conservative, and so they're always going to be on the conservative side, which I know used to be the Democratic side.
Yeah.
Because back in 2000, 2001, when those presidents got in, they were Democrats.
Oh,
and
okay.
the Amish, they laughed at the Republican Party that year because they were like, Al Gore was one of them, or Al Gore was crying, and they thought it was just the funniest thing because they knew that the president that got in instead of Al Gore was a good president. He was a Democratic president, but they wanted him in. The Amish did. He got in. And then came these later years and things kind of switched for them. And now this is the first year that I'm not Amish and I'm seeing it. And I'm like, gosh, it's not quite as dramatic when you're Amish. Because you don't hear it all.
Yeah.
You just hear the secondhand news coming from a biased viewpoint of your friends. And you don't see you don't go on social media and see the actual reactions of people and stuff.
So are you going to throw a fit? Or
No, I have a little more composure than that.
Lavina's got her stuff together. But no, I think too, it's very interesting to see it from a first-hand perspective because, when you're Amish, like you said, you don't have TV, you don't have cell phones, you don't have all the modern technologies. Now, of course, some of the more modern Amish do, but we're talking about the way we grew up. And I feel like I'm continually having to repeat myself and say that we're no longer Amish, even though we dress Amish for you guys, and so that way you can see what the Amish look like. But there's people that still comment and say, oh, well, you guys can't have technology if you're Amish. We're not Amish. We have left the Amish community. We're just dressed that way. But yeah, if you don't have the technology to tune in to all these, the podcasts and the TV shows and the news, so to speak, then you don't see the information firsthand, like you said. And it's completely different seeing it firsthand and play out right before your eyes, because when you're not involved in it, it's just it's no big deal. It doesn't really change your life much whether somebody gets in or not. And one of the major reasons why the Amish lean towards the conservative side, I think, is because they don't want to lose their rights to their religious freedoms. Yeah. And so they always lean towards the conservative side because I think they understand still that, conservative values are not as strict most of the time. Well,
not just that they're not as strict. Conservative values line up more with Amish values.
Yeah, that's a good point.
A lot of people, I feel like a lot of liberals would say conservative are more strict because the conservative are the ones who are talking about, banning abortion and all of that stuff. But the liberals, I feel like, go so far left that the Amish are scared of what they're going to do, even though they have their rights. The Amish are scared of what's going to happen in this world if everybody's just let loose, because they live in a world where everything is controlled.
Yeah.
So they're going to veer for the side that is more strict, more trying to keep things under control, like having rules, basically, having laws in place, whereas the liberals, a lot of them just want to turn everything loose, like everything just, it's loose. No one has to follow abortion laws, like no one has to follow gender laws. Like the Amish don't want that, so they're not going to vote for that.
Yeah, you got a great point. I said that they lean conservatively because they're not as strict. It's actually the opposite. So I retract my statement. But they like you said, they lean towards the more structured side, I guess is the way I would look at it. Because if you're not clear on what the boundary is, then how do you ever know when you cross the boundary? So if you're destroying your body, when do you know when you're going to die? I mean, it's that simple. And if you don't, that's where the liberals, they think it's okay to begin just destroying your body piece by piece. When do you know when it's too much? If everything's free for all. I mean, that's the way I see it. It's like, I mean, if I allow my kid to just, go jump off the house roof because he wants to fly, is there a good chance he's going to die? Yeah. That's why I'm the parent and I help him make smart choices. And
another thing that with the conservative side now that got voted in, with the way they want to give people choices, and I know the news likes to kind of tear this apart and just give you the bad pieces where they say they're going to take away the pharmaceuticals. They're not taking the pharmaceuticals away. They want to give us a choice between pharmaceuticals and healthy foods. Because a lot of the foods that are in big stores now here in the U.S. are banned in other countries. Mm-hmm. And that is another reason the Amish are so passionate towards conservative, because Amish don't use preservatives. They don't use artificial coloring and artificial flavoring. Like, they're natural foods. Yeah. They grow their own. So if you can put snacks in a store for the Amish, or snacks in a store in the U.S. here, like in Walmart, say, if you have snacks there with no coloring, artificial sweetener, stuff like that, the Amish are going to grab those up because they're there now for them. They're convenient for them and they're healthy. Yeah. Whereas now, if you go to Walmart, it's more expensive to find good choices.
Absolutely. You can walk up and down the aisles and there's basically no good choices.
Have you ever seen these videos of people from the UK coming over to the US and going into Walmart for the first time?
No.
Oh my gosh, you need to watch those. It's like, we are so spoiled. They go into the cereal aisle. The US Walmart cereal aisle is famous in the UK for its options.
Wow.
Like, because you go to Walmart, you have a solid row of cereal. The UK does not have that.
The only sad part about that is there's probably not one single box of cereal that's actually healthy.
Yeah, that's the only, I love the options, but they're not healthy.
Yeah, it's just,
it's with cake mixes, baking stuff, the same thing. I saw a video recently of a woman who came over from the UK, went into Walmart, and she walked into the cake aisle, like the cake mix aisle, and she's like, y'all have so many options. And then someone commented under the video and was like, and here I go into Walmart, I'm like, is that the only options you have?
All right, so let's get back to the voting. Why do the Amish, because we opened the video by saying they don't vote, and the Schwarzentrooper Amish, I've never seen the Schwarzentrooper Amish vote, and that's the way we grew up. So,
and the strict old order Amish don't either. Or
they typically wouldn't. No, I think this is...
I feel like the ones that voted this year most of them come from like the Lancaster, PA Amish. Which I don't know, is that New Order or Old Order?
Oh, that's Old Order.
I think it's literally just called Lancaster Amish.
It's Old Order. It's considered Old Order. There's a lot of New Order Mennonites there as well because they split off, but originally it was Old Order. Mm-hmm. And the reason why I think that maybe Pennsylvania flipped this year the way it did is it could largely be because of the Amish.
A lot of people are saying it's because of the Amish. I would not be surprised if it would be.
Yeah, because Lancaster is the biggest Amish community in the U.S.
And the reason for that is because when the Amish migrated to the U.S., Pennsylvania was the first state they migrated. Like, they came over, went straight to Pennsylvania, and that's where they settled. From there, they just spread out to other states. That's why the eastern, the East Coast has more Amish than, say, the West Coast. And
yeah.
Because they migrate from the east, just like everybody else did. They land on the East Coast, and that's where they settle. Because it was hundreds of years ago, and they didn't have cars and stuff to go traveling.
Yeah, there's. I mean, it hasn't been that long since the Amish migrated out west, like Colorado, Montana, some of those places. But yeah, I think it's very interesting to see that the Amish are getting involved into politics.
Yeah, no kidding. A lot of people are like, it's serious when the Amish get involved. I'm like, yeah, you're right, it is. But the Amish already voted some in 2016. I think 2016 was the first year that they voted. And this year, a record number of them have voted, more than ever before. So they had 180,000 new registered voters that were Amish in Pennsylvania.
Wow, that's amazing. Good for them. And I think it just comes down to them realizing that if they want to protect their freedoms, they have to get out and vote. And the reason they don't vote is the same reason they vote. Same reason some of them vote. Yeah. Because if they vote, then they believe, as words and Amish anyways, believe that if they vote, they're actively participating in the government. Yeah. And that means if they are voting, if they're open to voting, then they're also open to fighting in the war, and they're not open to doing that. And I don't know about like the ones that are voting, would they be open to fighting wars or not? I would guess that they're not, but they're probably gonna
do everything they can to prevent war.
Yeah, they're probably gonna do well, and they're gonna do everything that they can to. I mean, think about it. Our generation above us, there hasn't been a major war that people have gotten drafted, so they haven't really experienced that. And if it came down to it, I bet you they could group together and like they did,
like they did way back when. Yes, and if it would come to like that where they would get drafted, they'd literally go to prosecution if they would have to do not fight in the war. Yeah. At least the Swartz and Amish would like. And I thought, didn't they get rid of the draft in the U.S.? I thought they did.
Maybe for a period of time.
I thought they got rid of it, but I don't know.
But yeah, I think it's cool to see that they. Now I don't think Swartz and Trooper Amish still participate in voting. I'm pretty sure I don't know that'll ever happen because, and that's why we opened by saying why they don't vote, because the way we grew up, we never voted. We never got taught to vote. We were not allowed to vote. And I remember my dad, during an election period, my dad would gather with other elders and they would discuss about the things that are important to them. And I don't know who they went to see, if there was just another group of ministers that they would talk about and they would all end up going to Washington, D.C. to talk about this. I don't know how they went about doing that, but they definitely did not vote. And so I think it's kind of drilled into... Or it was anyways for us, kind of drilled into us that it's scary to vote. Because I remember in 2020, when my older brother left the Amish. He left the Amish in February, and in March, he left the Amish like right around the time COVID came out. Okay. And Mom and Dad had so much hope that he would come back because of COVID. Because they're like, it is so scary to not be Amish because you're out in the world and you're involved in all this stuff. And like, they were just sure that he would come back because all of this stuff is so scary. And so it was like bred into us or forced into us like all our life that it is scary to get involved in anything like government related. Mm-hmm. And I mean, I still am not the type of person who's just going to rely on the government for anything. But I'm
also the type of personality isn't scared to vote.
Yeah.
Because
well, that's
one thing. Like
right.
I came right. I finally this fall. I was like, I'm not gonna vote. It's like that way. If I don't vote, then I'm not involved. Like, say there's a war or something, that I can't be involved because I didn't vote. But then I was like, whatever. What? I voted. I mean,
good for you. I would have had to drag you to the polls if you didn't vote. That's your given right to be.
I
in
know,
this country.
but growing up Amish, you're taught to fear voting.
I know.
If you vote, you're giving up all your rights. Like, if you vote, you have to fight wars. Like,
yeah. Well,
I'm like,
if we have to fight wars to protect this country, then let's fight them.
Mm-hmm.
You know,
like, finally, I was like, that is such a thing from my childhood. Like, if you vote, you're automatically like giving up all of your right to freedom or something like that.
Yeah, they do drill that.
Because they don't even take, the checks, the stimulus checks. They won't even take stimulus checks. Or the Exporting to Amish won't.
Yeah, and I don't think that's necessarily a bad thing, because a lot of times the government, and you know, this is just my perspective, I guess you may have a different one, but the government is giving handouts in order to get you to buy into something else. And so the stimulus check was nothing less than that. I mean, it was, you know, sure, the country was going through a hard time, but how many people got used to that check and never wanted to go back to work? Like, it's just, it doesn't end up working out really well unless you're trying to control people, which is probably...
Yeah, I think the reason the Amish, or the reason Mom and Dad gave us that they aren't going to accept the stimulus checks, because they got over 20 grand in stimulus checks, and they returned every single one, and they told us that the reason they're not taking those is because if they take those and cash them, then the government has like a hold on them. Like, they basically trying to say the government can blackmail you.
Well, they're not far off there. And it was funny that you said that your parents were at home thinking that maybe your brother will come back during the COVID stuff. And I was just thinking, during COVID, I was thinking about going Amish. It was that bad. I'd be better off going
people
Amish
talk about COVID, and I'm like, I'm really curious what it was actually like, because I was Amish. I never found anything out. I'm like,
good for you.
I'm really curious what it was like. What would it be like if, like, people talk about they were in lockdown? Like, what does lockdown mean? Like, can you still go to the store? Like, I don't know, because we were Amish. Like,
it was, and I jokingly say that I was thinking about being Amish. I joked to my wife about the fact that we would be better off being Amish right now, because the government is like trying to control everybody. And really what it came down to is the government putting mandates in place. It's kind of like, in some ways, kind of like being Amish. You have certain restrictions. You can't go to town by yourself. You can't go to this store. You can't go to that store. And for us, especially for me, I'm like, I don't need, ever since I've left the Amish, I don't need anybody to tell me what to do. I'm a grown adult. I can make my own decisions. If I follow the law and I'm a good person in the society, then I can make my own decisions and go do what I want. So, like, I don't need somebody telling me I need a shot. I don't need somebody telling me I need to wear a mask.
That was the one thing a lot of people ask me, like, what about the COVID shot? I'm like, I've never taken vaccines. I'm so glad I was Amish at that time, because I never took any vaccines. And so I'm guessing, like, if I would have not been Amish, not grown up Amish or anything, I would have gotten all my vaccines. Like, people just take it as routine. If you have a baby, vaccinate them. Like, keep them vaccinated their whole life. And I'm like, I never had a vaccine. I'm not planning on ever getting a vaccine. Yeah. Because I don't know. I sometimes say my body is allergic to drugs. To, like, pharmaceutical medicines.
Your body is your choice, right?
Yes.
I mean, where did that saying go during COVID? My body, my choice.
I don't think it existed yet.
Yeah, right. They just chose not to use it. It's like, man. Gosh. But yeah, we got kind of off track.
Yeah, but that all kind of plays into why don't the Amish vote? Because they don't want to be tied to the government.
Yeah.
They are deathly afraid of being blackmailed.
They want to have their independent freedoms to operate and govern the way that they govern.
Choose to. Yeah.
Which I say from that point of view, like, kudos to them. You know,
like,
keep your freedoms.
Yeah, they stand up for what they believe in. Like, yeah. Everybody should be able to do that.
Doesn't mean we agree with it. No, it just means not. Like, if they can do that and that's what they believe in, then they should definitely do that.
Yeah.
So, anything else you want to add?
Not really. Okay. Except to everybody that's so sad about our new president-elect, God bless you.
Well, I'll just add this because I think it's all a short clip of a guy, and I thought a very, very interesting perspective. In several years from now, when the economy's turned around and things are going better, and there's a better what am I trying to say? We have better opportunities for our families. Then you can thank us then.
Oh, yes. And not just that. When Trump got in 2016, from 2016 to 2020, he was the only Republican president in the last however many years, in the last while. So please, liberals, give us 4 years. You guys can suffer through 4 years of conservative presidency, and then we'll see where it goes from there. But we've been going through Democrat presidents.
Yeah.
The conservatives have put up with Democrat presidents for years.
Yep.
Like, take turns here, don't fight.
Yeah, that's what the voting is all about.
Yeah.
We get to choose every 4 years. If we don't like the person,
a lot of people say it was this president that we have now that we are losing our democracy.
Yeah.
And I went and looked up the definition of democracy. It's like, what democracy are we losing? Because it's all up to the choice of the people.
Yeah.
That's what democracy is, I thought.
Well, democracy would be up to the choice of the people, yes. But if like we're losing our democracy, it would mean you mean the person that we elected currently?
I mean, like
Trump?
It doesn't democracy mean like the choice of all the people, like together.
Well, yeah. So
it's like because if you see it. I'm not going to get too deep into this, but if you see how Kamala got in to run, she didn't get elected in there.
Yeah,
she just came in. That's not democracy.
Yeah. Well, exactly.
That's not democracy. And I'm like, they're supposed to be the Democratic side. Like, they should be the definition of democracy, and that is not democracy.
Hey, you can't be using that much common sense, Lavana. That's way too logical here, okay? We gotta be a lot more sophisticated and confusing for people, because if you start making sense, then you're probably gonna get shut down, okay? So
oh well, if it's common sense that gets shut down, then whatever.
We better speak it while we can.
Yeah, it's like common sense isn't so common anymore.
Yep, and that is why we elected a new president, because of the part of the definition of that word. It's common sense that has elected a new president. Not saying that other people don't have common sense that didn't vote for him. I'm just saying that the majority of people have decided that they want common sense back into this country.
Yeah.
And I think that's the kind of message that Donald Trump ran on, and he did obviously really well.
He did the first 4 years good. No one went to war. No one died from his presidency. Like,
people just got very, very, very offended.
Mm-hmm. And good grief, if that's all that's wrong is you're offended, then be offended, because you will live.
Offense will make you stronger. Hey, those were the positive messages of today from the Amish Rebel podcast. We hope you enjoyed this episode. We will be back on next week. Thank you for all your support. Thank you for your comments, sharing the podcast. Man, you guys have been doing amazing. We love you guys. We appreciate you. And we'll see you in the next video.